Hi, Laura. Welcome. Hopefully my mic's working properly and you can hear me. All right. 25 target drone. You've always used acrylic. What does one need to learn to change to oils? Oh, happy to do that. Uh, do oils dry that much slower? Yes, much, much slower. Um, but I view that as a good thing, not a negative. I'm actually frustrated with how quickly my oils dry sometimes, and they're much slower. All right. 1 second. Okay. My face cam is having issues. Alrighty. Oh, I forgot to zoom in. Hello. Right, zoom in. Eh, that's pretty good. Hey. All right. Good to see you all. Yeah, target drone, absolutely. I'm happy to talk about this and get into it a bit. Um, there there's a lot of similarities between the two. It depends on how you paint. If you're doing a lot of glazes, oils might not be the right choice for you. If you want to paint more directly, oils is great. Um, Oils is also good for glazing. It's not as like quick and immediate like it is with what's it called, with acrylics. So it's a different thing. And I honestly don't know that much about it because I don't paint like that. I paint much more directly. But yeah, the drying times, like I'm not going to say sometimes it's a hindrance for sure. Uh, Glazes, like when you put like transparent layers on top, where you like put translucent washes over it all and wait and then have to wait for that to dry. People do that in oils. It's a much slower process. It's beautiful. It creates luminescent colors and everything, but it's a different process. Um, Glazing is probably a bit advanced. I don't want to say it's advanced. It's just different, and you do have to get some um, direction because it's not as obvious. The steps aren't as obvious, I'd say. What do I mean by directly? Oh, no worries. You're welcome to ask any questions. There's no issues at all. What I mean by directly is going to be kind of how I'm painting, as you'll see. It's basically just mixing your colors, putting them on the canvas. That's it. Like it's direct. You mix paint, you put it down. There's no like glazing or anything like that. Sometimes I do paint over dry paint because usually it's not a choice. It's because I only have so much time to work on things, and then they end up drying before I get back to them, which is not what I want, but it's what happens, unfortunately. Let's see. Uh, Target says, "Oh yeah. While I generally paint minis, the larger projects you've done, you generally overpaint, and when you do more layers, if I wait for the first to dry, I can make sharp lines by taping top layers." Yeah, absolutely. You can do that with oils. It's a much slower process for some of that, for some elements of that. But it just depends. You know, I don't know if you do this with acrylics, but you know, acrylics have all kinds of mediums that you can add to your painting. Like, you know, there's there's a retarder that makes it dry slower. There's mediums that help that like thin it out and so on. So all those things that you can add to your paint, there's stuff like that in oils. So there are things that you can add to your paint that will make it dry within a day if it's a thin layer. Honestly, it starts getting tacky within a couple hours, like 4 hours or so. It starts to get a bit tacky to the touch with certain mediums. So it's totally doable. It just depends. I think it will depend on your workflow and how often you need to tape up everything. Like if you're doing like if you draw everything out, then tape it up, paint over it, remove the tape, then paint back over it, tape it up again. Like if this is a repeating like thing that goes back and forth repeatedly many times, it might be a slow with oils. Used to use Flow Aid and Slow Dry, so it would dry slower. As we as well as flatten better. Sure. Like I said, it really just depends on what you're trying to do with your paintings. The not the I'm not saying this is like the golden rule, but this is one of the best advices I got was pick your favorite artists. Like find who your favorite painters are. And by favorite, I mean the ones that you want to paint like, not the ones you appreciate, because there's a ton of painters I love who I would never want to paint like them. But I'm talking about the ones who you want to paint like them. Find those painters, and look at what mediums they use. A lot of times there's a reason that they use those mediums, you know, either acrylics or oils or whatever. Like there's a reason they chose that. So that would be my first recommendation. And the other thing I would ask is like, is there a reason you want to get into oils specifically? Like, are you unhappy with the experience in with your acrylics, or is there something else behind it? But otherwise, regardless, I'm happy to talk about all the like differences, the things you would need to buy, and the pitfalls, and so on, and the safety hazards as well. Like, I'm happy to talk about all that stuff. Um, you know, because I also can't assume that you're the only one who has questions like that, especially since people can watch this after the fact. So yeah, absolutely. I don't mind talking about any of this stuff. The big thing, I'm going to start with health concerns real quick because um, I want people to be safe, right? So, um, hold on a second. Let's see. Before I get into that, Target Drone says, I never knew people who used oils, and when I did look, granted a while ago, the oil users' answers were quite pretentious, so I stopped looking. Oh, that's unfortunate. Um, there's a bunch of people on YouTube who teach or discuss oil painting, who are not pretentious, who I can recommend. Um, Lena Danya is a great YouTuber. She's a really good oil painter. Uh, ah, that's not good. Hold on a second. One second, my easel slid a little bit. One second. Lena Danya is really good. She has some good videos on like basics. I'm not saying she's the only one. Actually, if you give me a minute, I'll link. I recently linked a talk that someone had about painting in oils that went over all the basics and safety stuff. I'll post it in the chat in just a minute. Just let me clean up my palette real quick so I can before I do that. But yeah. But yeah, so for safety, it's worth mentioning paints, all paints, any paint that uses pigment and probably ones that use dyes as well have the potential to be toxic because pigments are, materials that can be toxic. That's just the way it is. Cadmiums are heavy metals. Oil paints, some oil paints, and you won't get it by accident, but they'll let you know. I famously use lead, and obviously lead is also toxic, and so on. There's some other paints. Some of them aren't toxic. That's fine. That's the pigments. Like I said, every paint uses pigments. Acrylics, oils, there's no difference there. The oil that oil paint is bound in is vegetable oil. It's a drying vegetable oil. It is not toxic on itself. It's like I said, some of them use safflower oil, most use linseed oil, some use walnut oil. It is literally just a vegetable oil that dries over time. But here's the two main areas that you have to be careful is don't eat your paints, or three rather. Don't eat your paints and don't use them as a moisturizer because the pigments can be toxic. If you use any medium or solvents, a lot of mediums have solvents in them, and a lot of people just use solvents in general because they're convenient. They are. They have fumes. Even if they're odorless, they still have fumes, and that is toxic and really detrimental to your health. So make sure you have ventilation. With enough ventilation, my understanding is you should be fine. Just saying. My understanding too is Gamsol is the slowest evaporating one, so probably the least toxic. And then the really hidden danger is oil-soaked rags or oil-soaked paper towels. This doesn't apply just to oil painting. If you do woodwork and you use rags to oil, finish your woodwork or your home construction or whatever, when oil dries, it oxidizes and that generates heat. If you take a paper towel and you crumple it up and it's inside something else and there's a lot of that, it can trap that heat and then combust. So you can either lay it out flat to dry somewhere, like hang it up, or I put it in containers with water and dish soap. And then you're supposed to take this once it's full to, what is it? There's like your city has a disposal place or whatever it's called. I forget the name of it. So yeah. Target Drone says, I love things with stronger smelling fumes so you know when you're being exposed. Yeah, that's helpful. So I do want to actually touch on that briefly because people think that oil paint is so much more toxic and people are scared of it. I was too, honestly, compared to acrylics. Only time I've ever been sick from fumes was from acrylics. I was using a particular medium. Um, I don't remember the name of it, and what's it called? And I have a really bad sense of smell. I couldn't smell it, but it made me very, very ill. Um, because acrylics can have fumes and they can off gas as well. Just because they use water doesn't really mean anything. So yeah, just be warned. Just be forewarned. Uh, Oil rags in the trash can for that spicy experience. Yeah, places have literally burnt down from that. So it's really it's not. I'll say for a normal individual, like it's not common or expected, right? Like from just wiping off my rag, the chances. I mean, from wiping off my brush, the chances are like minimal. But minimal and none aren't the same. Also, if I ever spill oil, that's happened, and I clean it up, that's a concern. So it's just something to be aware of. The main reason I mention it, and I do mention it a lot, is because people are unaware of it. It is a hidden danger that people have no idea about. People know about fumes, people know about like a lot of times, they know that paint is toxic because they might think it's more toxic than it really is, but these are things people know about. The combustion, not as much. All right. So I worked on this on Monday, and some of it is still, yeah, a lot of it's still wet. Um, so that is good. Like I said, I prefer to work wet into wet. Um, I almost never there are occasions, but almost never do I want to work, over a dry painting. Like I do it all the time. I'd rather just stay wet until I'm done. Most of the time. Every once in a while, there's a reason I need to be able to like layer and do that. That's a different story. But usually there's no reason to layer because if it's wet, I can just wipe something off if I need to, right? So layering becomes kind of pointless. All right. I feel a little weird today, by the way. Just my energy levels are kind of all over the place. Like I got very little sleep and I'm hopped up on a ton of caffeine. Um, and I have a lot of work. Anyways, so I'm a little scattered today. Oh yeah, let me get that link real quick. This this video I'm going to link is phenomenal. All right, so this is Julie Beck. She's an oil painter and an art teacher. Um, she goes on this video, she goes over all the very basics. It's long, uh, but it is, it's really good. And I wish I could get rid of this stupid heart thing on the side. I really wish I knew how to get rid of this thing on the side of my chat. It drives me nuts. There's that heart on the side, and yeah, that it won't let me click the side of the thing. Why can't I get rid of that? I'm trying to click on the to pin the message and I can't because of that thing. Great. Yeah. Arts are great. Yeah, but not when I want to like click on the thing to now. What is going on here? Now it won't let me. Man, my chat thing is just giving me a hard time today. I don't know why. Why is this giving me such a hard time? Um, all I'm trying to do is like pin the message. There we go. Oh my God. Heart, yeah, hearts are great, but it's this little symbol in the side that won't let me. Like sometimes I can't even see what people are writing, like the end of their message, because of that heart thing on the side, and I don't know how to get rid of it. So yeah, annoying. Anyways, but yeah, that link is great. Julie Beck is fantastic. She's a fantastic painter and a teacher at a university. Like she's just great. I have like nothing but good things to say about her. All right. Yeah. But yeah, any other questions about oil painting or whatever, you're welcome to ask. You can really get away with like not a ton of supplies, especially in the beginning. Um, it just depends on your process and what you know want to get out of it, and how you paint. Because I paint with a very minimal palette, as you can see. It's basically like a primary palette. There's white. This is bismuth yellow or cad lemon. Uh, um, quinacridone rose, which is PV19, phthalo blue, and Mars black. And that's it. I could do 99% of my paintings with just these colors, because you don't need anything else really. One thing I will say is, you know, these aren't necessarily the best colors to start with. Like I do think other colors are probably better to like for starting out if you're not like familiar, or like if you're not very comfortable mixing paints for whatever reason, you know. Um, I don't know that this would be the easiest palette to start with, but it is a very minimal palette, and because of that, it's very accessible. Um, there are some other minimal palettes I can recommend, if that's something that you know people are interested in. Um, I think Julie covers some of that as well in her talk. And like I said, Lena Danya is really good. I like her a lot. Um, oh, Our Painted Lives on YouTube, fantastic channel. He doesn't really touch so much on the basics, uh, but Nicholas Uribe and Danny, the painter, it's Nicholas Uribe and Danny, who's also an artist, but she doesn't usually do paintings for the channel, are fantastic. That's where a lot of the people who come into my chat are from. They know me from there because uh, I hang out in their chat a lot. Yeah. But yeah, if you have any other questions, you're welcome to ask. And anyone watching this after the fact, if you want to ask in the what is it called, in the comments, you're absolutely welcome to ask. I mean, I can keep talking about some of the basics as far as like materials and stuff, if that's something that is interesting. Um, my palette is a glass palette. Uh, it's not expensive. Glass palettes are good for oil paints because you can use like a metal scraper to scrape the paint off. Or, and I didn't know this originally, you can also use, if the paint's dry and hard to get off the palette, you can use rubbing alcohol to dissolve it. But yeah, this is just a piece of like cheap glass from Home Depot. Cost me like $5. Once it's too scratched up, um, I'll replace it because it's, you know, so cheap, it doesn't really matter. Laura, welcome back. How are you feeling, by the way? I remember, unless I'm getting you confused with someone, you weren't feeling too well. You were sick. I hope you're slowly making a. No, I hope it's really fast, but I hope you're making a recovery. I was going to say slowly, but no, I hope it's super fast, like superhuman fast, even. Ideally, you know. Still got a cough and tire out easily. Yeah, sometimes it takes a while, unfortunately. So, I'm just starting off with the background. I often start off with the parts that are like, I'm going to say less important. Not that the background is always less important, but by less important, I mean like if I get it slightly wrong, it doesn't really matter, right? Um, whereas if you get the face slightly wrong, it's usually kind of a big deal. Sort of. That's, anyways. But yeah, I usually just start off a little on the like, on areas that I can just kind of warm up on, kind of thing. Honestly, this painting is a little different than most portraits because I'm not actually I don't actually want it to be like a super accurate portrait because this is a what's it called? A found photography uh photo. And so I'm not really interested in making this like a super close up uh you know, detailed portrait. For those who don't know, found photography is very much what it sounds like. It's photos that are discovered, essentially, or found. Can be things that are found in an abandoned house, abandoned locker room, storage unit, estate sales, all that kind of stuff. And it's like no one owns it. No one knows who the owner is. No one knows who the people in it are. It's just kind of lost stuff. And all the found photography that I use is very old, which is by design. I don't want to use anything current. Yeah. But the idea behind this series of paintings is to kind of I don't know how exactly to describe it. Um, I mean, there's a reason I'm a painter, not a writer, but the idea is kind of like shared memories that we kind of all have. Now, obviously, it's not going to touch everyone all the time, but there's all these photos that it's like if if my family members had told me that this was a photo out of our family, you know, like from our family photos, I would believe them. I'd wonder who this person was, but I would also believe them. So it's that kind of concept of shared memories. And sometimes it can feel like even if I wasn't there, I know what that whatever experience is feels like. Like I said, not every single one's going to, you know, do it for every single person, but yeah, that's the concept at least. I also think that sometimes when it comes to art, the artist doesn't have to have like a I know we expect it to have like a written down like concept of exactly what they're trying to say or but I do think it's okay to have more less a hard idea of it or and more just a general kind of feeling that you're trying to convey even if it's not exact like if you can't exactly put it into words because I at least with my art and with a lot of I know with a lot of art it's not every art but with a lot of art there's a lot of interpretation built in built into it so the viewer adds a lot and if you want the viewer to add a lot to it you need to leave room for them you know yeah if there's no room for interpretation then there's no room for the viewer to add anything to it so and this brush I um really have to soak it and see if I can bring it back to life the bristles are so rough right now. Not that that's a bad thing, like, I can if I can't, quote, unquote, "revive" it, I can still use it for what it is, it's just it'll limit what I can use it for. But, yeah, um, anyways, but going back to, like, oil painting technique well, not technique, but supplies, basically, you just need, um, a you know, obviously, you need a palette of some kind, some place to mix the paint. A lot of people use like picture frames with the glass in it, which is fine. Just be careful not to cut yourself. Glass. Got to be careful. Laura says I ordered some hard acrylic palettes. Said it was good to use with oil. I hope the paint comes off easy. Hard acrylic? You mean like acrylic, like plastic acrylic? You mean? Um, is that what you're referring to? I'm assuming that's what you're referring to, unless you tell me otherwise. I'm going to run with that real quick. Um, you can't you can't use a metal scraper like razor scraper like you can on this on glass because that will scrape into the glass. I think you can still use metal palette knives, but I wouldn't use a metal razor. Having said that, Um, check to see if it's safe to use rubbing alcohol on it, because rubbing alcohol will take off paint, dried oil paint. It'll dissolve it, and you can just rub it off with a rag. Uh, you just have to make sure that the alcohol won't dissolve the plastic. I doubt it, but chemicals are weird. So I would double check that first. But yeah. Like isopropyl alcohol or whatever it's called. But yeah, that stuff will take off they'll take off dried paint off of your palette. Which I didn't know for a long time. But yeah. Oh, no, I was just thinking on what's it called? Oh, on Twitch, Arthur Gaines. Sorry, my voice kind of cracked a little. Arthur Gaines, he's a great painter. Uh, he also teaches. I don't know if he teaches online, but yeah, he's really good. Yeah, chemicals are weird. Remember Breaking Bad, and Pinkman used the bathtub to dissolve the body, but used the chemicals that ate through the tub? Yeah. I unfortunately, and I'm really sad about this, I stopped watching Breaking Bad after, I can't remember. It was either after season 2 or 3. I can't remember which one it was, but I stopped when it was actually airing. Um, I was going through a really, really hard time at that time, and the show was so good that it was like stressing me out to watch it. And I was going through, like I said, I was going through such a hard time at that time that I couldn't deal with it. So I stopped watching. I always intended to get back into it and then never did. So I do definitely want to. Laura says he teaches at an art college in Spain. Arthur Gaines? Yes, he teaches. Yes, he does. And he also teaches workshops. But I didn't know if he has like online courses as well. Also, Chelsea Lang. Chelsea Lang on YouTube. Really good. She does have a class. I've been in for a long time. It's not a class as much as a boot camp type of thing. Really, really good teacher, really good artist. Great YouTube channel. Highly recommend. One of the things I will say for anyone looking to get into oil paints, um, one of the things that was like, I will say, like I said, the link I shared is really good. Um, the Julie Beck's thing on it is really good. One of the things that really, I don't want to say held me back, but yeah, held me back or got in the way when I first started in oil paints, because I wasn't familiar with it. I wasn't using the right type of brushes. Um, you need firmer brushes most of the time with oil paints. There are times when softer brushes are appropriate, and you'll get a handle on it over time, but you need stiffer brushes than you would with like watercolors, and I think even within acrylics. But yeah, I use only synthetic brushes. They have natural hair bristle brushes. You don't have to use those if you object to them like I do. You can use natural hair brushes. You can use synthetic brushes. They have really firm ones, really good ones at this point. It's not an issue. It's more an issue of like how just the firmness, really. Laura says, my husband loved Breaking Bad. We watched it while he dealt uh, with his own lung cancer. He got a hat like the main guy and everything. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I was dealing with different types of issues at the time. I was basically at that point like let me put it, I would have been living in my car had a friend of mine not let me stay in a room at her house for the friend rate of whatever I could pay or do around the house. And that's where I was at that time. So it was, a different type of hard times, which, is just different. But yeah. So, um, but that's awesome that he got into it like that. I think that's really cool. Does he still wear the hat? Yeah, when you need to get your life on track, you need to prioritize. Yeah, you do. I don't what's it called? It's it also is just an issue of like I just don't have the um what's it called? Emotional space to deal with almost anything at that point. It was just like nothing. I just didn't want to deal with things that I didn't have to deal with basically. Like no extra energy available for anything. Nah, you have the hat, my husband. Oh, I'm so sorry. Sorry to hear that. I hope the hat's at least like good memories kind of thing. It's kind of a side thing, but when and I'm not to be clear, I'm not making the comparison. I'm just talking about grief in general. Uh, our cat passed away years ago, and losing a pet is hard. I'm not making comparisons to anything. I'm just saying, losing pets can be hard. And when our cat passed away, one of the things that really helped me was I did a bunch of paintings of her favorite stuff without her. I didn't do a painting of her. I did a painting of all the stuff she loved the most, kind of thing. Um, and losing a pet is really hard too. Yeah, absolutely. And the reason, like, I think one of the reasons that helped me personally deal with it was because, obviously it was sad and everything, but at some point when you're painting or you're drawing, um, your brain kind of clicks over to that mode, right? Like you're just in the like I am drawing now mode, and it's a very analytical kind of headspace in a lot of ways. And obviously, some people paint very emotionally and so on, but there's still like ultimately there's an analytical side to this, right? Because like you still have to engage your brain in the technical aspects of painting or drawing. And and I felt like doing that let me focus on like I was able to focus on her without being sad at the time. Like and I don't know, that to me helped me kind of process through things. I don't know if that's how that works exactly, but I know that I heard that there's something similar with like psychedelics on how they help people process through like traumatic incidences. So, who knows? All right, I need to put out some more yellow. I didn't realize I was almost out. So sometimes paint will separate from the oil a bit. Uh, it just depends on, there's all kinds of factors that determine that. Annoying when it happens, though, or it can be. Oh my God, Dave, what the fuck? Hey man, welcome. Love it made amazing work. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. How you doing? Hope you had a I hope everybody, not just you, but I hope you had a great New Year's and everything. Thanks for stopping by. I have two chats going on at the same time, by the way, just FYI. So you're in the Twitch. I also have YouTube. There's a note there about that because, yeah. So if anyone's curious why I'm talking to like ghosts, it's people in other chats. Just FYI. But yeah, thanks so much. All right, I got distracted and now I forgot where I was. 1 second. All right. Can you switch over? Laura asks, should I switch over to Twitch so you can see what we say in one place? No, because there's people, there's you here and you on YouTube, and there's I think they may have left, but there was the other person that was there, so it's fine. Whatever you want. YouTube allows me to stream at higher, like at a better quality. I was loading my yellows. Thank you. Yes. YouTube does let me stream at higher quality video, which I like. The chat functions are subpar, but compared to Twitch. But I mean, I will, that, whatever. Like, so I'm simulcasting either way. It doesn't matter. It's gonna. So if you want to switch over to talk to Dave, you're welcome to. Whatever you want. But yeah. So now I remember where I was focused on. All right. Are you an artist, Dave? My assumption, generally speaking, is that anyone who stops by here is like, I'd say like 80% chance that they're also an artist in some way, because most of the time that's the people who like to stop by oil painting streams. Laura says, yeah, I've been modding on Twitch for almost 4 years for different gamers and stuff. The chat features are much more advanced. Oh, they are. They're so much better. And I'll also say like the culture on Twitch is much more interactive compared to like YouTube. Um, but like I said, I like streaming at 4K on YouTube, whereas I can't do that on Twitch. On Twitch, I can theoretically stream at 2K, um, but they don't guarantee that they'll actually output at 2K. So I can like put in all the effort to upload it at that, and then they still output it at like 720p sometimes, or HD, 1080p, and that's kind of annoying. But yeah, people on YouTube a lot of times just watch and they don't participate, which I mean I appreciate the views, by by all, you know, but there's a word there that my brain isn't coming up with, but I do appreciate the views, but I do like the interaction. Like that's part of the reason I'm live streaming, so people can ask questions, people can talk, like oh, I'm blanking on his name, but he was asking about oil painting and all that. Like, yeah, absolutely. Happy to talk about it. The only I'd say the only like downside to the Twitch kind of uh what's the word I'm looking for? Like I guess chat culture is they, lean towards emotes and spamming emotes, and more like a lot of it comes from like gamers. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not like what I'm doing. I did try and like come up with emotes and stuff a long time ago when I solely streamed on Twitch, but I'm not getting back into that. It's just not what I'm going for, is what I'm getting at. Nothing wrong with doing that, just not for me. It was a gaming platform first. Yeah, absolutely. It was. So, and I mean, I'm on Twitch. I watch people on Twitch all the time. Like I don't think there's anything wrong with that stuff. I'm trying to like gear myself in a certain direction, I guess. Or maybe the right term is market myself, which I hate saying. But yeah. I think the thing is, my art my art teacher asked me like about this once, and the basic idea is like, I'm a painter first, and I'm just streaming to get my artwork out there and to be more comfortable with talking to people, and to meet people. I'm not expecting to make a living as a streamer. I'm not expecting to be XQC or Asmongold or anything like that. Hey, Laura. Welcome to the other chat. Hey, so I guess that's where it comes from. I don't think I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I even have the personality or the like, I don't know what it, probably just the interest, honestly, to be like a full-time streamer. Full-time painter, yes. Streamer, not so much. I remember watching, I don't watch him anymore because I'm boycotting him, but I used to watch Jazza. Um, and he did a thing on being a YouTuber. Um, Laura says streaming can be stressful and take over your life. Absolutely, it is. Absolutely, I view it as like I said, it's just a tool. It's a marketing tool. It's a networking tool. It's a and that once again, networking has such a negative connotation. It's a way of meeting people and getting out there. That's all. I don't, like I said, I never, there are very few people who make a living as a, you know, like art streamer kind of thing. Some do, I'm not saying, but yeah. Um, but yeah, I remember watching Jazza's like video on how to be a YouTuber, and the energy that he would bring to things is just crazy. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't have that in me. Clearly, I am not that type of person. So I just think it's funny. And don't get me wrong, I have energy. It's just that like exuberant, outgoing energy that I don't have. I know that there are YouTubers who don't act like that, but you know, just overall. Ironically, though, I will say this: I find streaming so much easier than making videos, like scripted videos. Oh, I struggle with those so much. I have a couple I want to make. Like there's one I really, really want to make soon, and I just struggle with that stuff. Like just coming on here and talking to people and like painting while I talk is so much easier than like recording a video. Oh, my head keeps getting in the way. So yeah. I know other people I know I know people, there are people who feel very differently about that. They want to be able to record and they want to be able to edit and do all that stuff. Um, yeah, all that stuff is just like in the way, in my opinion. All right, his chin needs some work. Let's work on that. Laura says, I wanted to learn how to record doing my art and then speed it up so you can put video instead of doing the streaming. My dog interfered with live streams. I got tired, etc. I can help with that. The technical aspects of that, I can help with. In fact, um, your digital program allows you to record. You just haven't done it. Oh, okay. Which program are you using? I can think of two that allow for that automatically. Um, Clip Paint Studio and Procreate are the two that come to mind. I went all digital. I was on a digital artist, a solely digital artist at one point. So I'm very familiar with all the technical digital art stuff, by the way, in case anyone wasn't aware of that. I used to be big into that. Krita. Okay, that's new then. That's awesome that they added that. I haven't messed with Krita. I've played around with Krita a little, but by the time Krita became decent, Um, by the time Krita became decent, because at one point it was just like not the best. Um, I already had so many other programs that um, it just felt kind of pointless for me to like you know, get involved with it. But I do love Krita. I love the fact that it's open source, and I really do think it's a great program and a program that people should support. So if anyone's looking to get into digital art, Krita is open source and free. Certain versions or certain versions that are paid because they have certain features or platforms, but that's it. You don't have any Apple products? Fair. I'm not an Apple. I don't have, well, I didn't have any Apple products. I did buy an iPad years ago um, to do exactly what you're talking about, and then I ended up going pretty much exclusively into oils. So, I still use the iPad occasionally, bring it around with me, especially on trips and stuff like that. It's really good. It's good for that. Although now, finally, Android is catching up in that department. Yeah, for the longest time, Android just was like trash when it came to not the technical stuff, it was the programs. They just weren't any good programs on it. You have a Samsung tablet with touchscreen, so you use Crit on that and have a drawing tablets that attach to the PC. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, Crit is on Android. Uh, you know that obviously, but Crit is on Android and is on PC. I think Mac as well, for the record. I don't know if it's on iPad yet, although I think they're planning on that, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, you mean the Samsung has pressure sensitivity? Ah, yeah, it does. Although I will say this, this is an interesting uh, opinion that I have on the pressure sensitivity. It depends on what you're working on, right? Like obviously it depends. And pressure sensitivity gives you a ton more options. Having said that, if you're doing like digital painting, um, and you want it to look like you want it to be more like real painting versus like the digital techniques, because most people who paint digitally, what they do is they use a ton of transparency in their painting, and there's a lot of like painting and layers. Because it's digital, every brush stroke becomes a new, not a new layer, but like a new, even if it's on the same technically layer, it's like a new layer. Um, and I'm comparing it to like traditional medium, right? Um, and but yeah, you don't really need pressure sensitivity to do um, a lot of the painting if you want it to look more traditional. I'll put it that way. It's convenient sometimes to have the pressure sensitivity. It can actually get in the way though sometimes, which I know it's not a popular opinion. Most people think it's crucial, But yeah, a lot of times it's just more in the way than anything beneficial. Having said that, if you're sketching or if you're inking, doing comic book type work, totally different story. Then the pressure sensitivity, it can absolutely be crucial because you cannot ink with no, you can. I take that back. You can, but it will definitely affect the style that you're able to achieve. Uh, so, because people ink with some people ink with pens that have no width variation, so it is possible, but yeah, it's very limiting. Overall, I'd say yes, pressure sensitivity. Having the option is always better because you can always turn it off. But I just wanted to throw that out there because some people feel like, oh no, I can't even start until I have this or that or whatever. Nah, you can. Krita has a specific set of brushes that you use for blending that really um, use the pressure sensitivity. So yeah, I really like it. No, absolutely. I totally agree. I'm this wasn't for you specifically, Laura. Absolutely. It was just like, some people sometimes worry or want to get into things, and I was just pointing that out because that's all. But yeah, there are definitely brushes that take advantage of the pressure sensitivity more than others. And like I said, it depends on your painting process, right? Like some people, they do the more pressure you put, the more paint goes down. And that's kind of like, in a way, it's almost like airbrushing, digitally airbrushing. So it just depends on your process. I was just saying, like, if you want to paint very, like, very much, try and make it very, like, quote unquote, traditional, you can get away without the pressure sensitivity stuff. But yeah, you won't have the blending options. There'll be a more what's the word I'm looking for? Uh yeah. You need to figure out how to adjust the brushes, customize them. There's a nice set of wet oil brushes, but they act weird. Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I'll tell you a funny experience. So I work digitally all the time, right? Uh, for work, I work digitally, like my at my job. So I'm very comfortable with the tools. But when I went to visit my mom last year, and I brought my iPad with me, and I tried to do some painting on my iPad after I hadn't done any digital painting in a long time. I struggled so hard with the iPad, because like compared to oil painting, it was just like it was not it. There's just something that like shifted in my brain, and it was so hard to like I don't know. It was just so hard for me to get into painting on the iPad. Not just like get into it, like it was one of those things where it's like, oh, I want it to do this or that, and it can't, or it wouldn't do the things I needed it to do. So it just made the whole process so hard and slow that eventually I just kind of gave up and just stuck to sketching. It's really good at sketching. But yeah, it was really weird because I've been painting on, digitally for years. But yeah, the tools and all that stuff are, you know, that's what I'm looking for. Um, you know, are the easy part, honestly. Being a good artist has nothing to do with the with those tools. Like if you can draw and you can paint in a medium, you can transfer to another medium eventually. Like there's obviously a bit of a learning curve and a stumble, like getting used to the tools, but yeah, it is just a tool, right? Having said that, oil paints for me personally, and this I think is something that is very much a personal thing that everybody should experiment with different mediums for this exact reason, but oil paints took me a long time to like really get. But once I did, something in my brain just kind of clicked over, and I was just like, okay, this now feels suddenly so much better than any painting medium I've ever worked in, ever. And it just, I don't know, suddenly just felt right and just was a good fit. Um, so yeah. But if something happened and there was never oil paints again in the world, I could paint with a gouache or with a probably with acrylics, um, and other stuff too. I will say, I think in a lot of ways, like, Michelle bought me a book on painting. Actually, she bought me a few books on painting for Hanukkah, and one of them is it's a portrait painting portraits, but in acrylics, and they're very sorry, just had to check something. They're very expressive portraits, and very like what's the word I'm looking for? Chunky and like uh messy in all the right ways. It's really cool looking. And I'm like, I can see how the acrylics actually aid in achieving this look. Um, and I could see possibly like using acrylics, especially for certain situations. Oh, hold on, I'll share the book in just a minute. Uh, if you can hold off, if you can hold on for a minute or two, I'll happily share it. But yeah, I could see like using acrylics could be very convenient, especially for like travel. Like I feel like they could be more convenient than oils for traveling with and stuff like that. Depending on the circumstances, right? Um, but my God, when I tried using acrylics again, and I say again because when I was in art school, I used acrylics, but we basically did a glazing technique, and it was a very methodical, like step by step process that my teacher taught us how to do, which produced amazing results. I don't enjoy painting like that, so I don't want to, right? But um, but yeah, when I tried painting in acrylics again, uh, oof, it was rough. Like as bad as my oil paintings were, and they were really bad when I first got into oils, because I could not like I didn't have command over the medium. I couldn't get them to do what I wanted them to do. Uh, but acrylics was worse. Oh my God, so much worse. You bought yourself a book, not Laura says, I bought myself a book not long ago, The Encyclopedia of Oil Techniques, basically a guide on how to use different techniques. That's cool. That's really cool. Um, yeah, when I tried to paint in oil, in acrylics, directly, the people ended up looking like they had a disease because acrylics do have a color shift that happens when they dry, and I could not accommodate for the color shift. And so, I'd put down some highlights, like I'd put down, spots of highlights for the face, and then they would dry dark. And so the people and change colors a little. And so the people looked like they, had a disease or something. Not a good look. So I don't know. Maybe I'll try again one day, but like I don't know. I at the same time I feel like I found my medium, and until I'm like struggling with oil paints to get the look I want, I don't know. There's just I will say there's one aspect I wish I could incorporate into my oil painting, and it's a lot easier with acrylics than it is with oils. Just one, and that is uh, drips. Doing like painting drips. Uh, yeah, that's the one thing that is difficult for me specifically to incorporate into my oil paints. All right, let's see real quick. Here we go. Um, it is painting portraits in acrylic um, by Hashim Akib. But yeah, you can see from the cover, like that's great. If you look at in the back too, like these are great portraits, right? Don't get me wrong, like you can do this in oils too. This isn't something that's exclusive to acrylics, but I can also see how the fast drying aspect of the acrylics could aid in getting that like very like chunky kind of messy look to it, right? That's all. Yeah, like that's great. I love that. That's such a fun painting to look at. But, like I said, none of this is something you can't get with oils. In fact, you know, that's just so That's such a good painting. Like, it's just a good painting, period. You can do this in oils. There's nothing about this painting that's like, oh, I couldn't do that in oils. But I'd say like the dry brush effect where like things are covering other things, you know, might be, obviously it would be easier in acrylics because it'll happen fast. Having said that, doing soft blends, anytime you want to do soft, you know, anytime you want to do lost edges in acrylics, you better work fast. Yeah. Um, yeah. But yeah, the color shift is the part that like was the biggest issue with acrylics for me. That and the fast drawing actually impeding my ability to paint. I also painted in gouache. Let me see if I have any gouache paintings left that I can share. Um, I hate to show a painting that isn't finished, but it, you know, I never got around to finishing it and probably never will. But this is a Destiny character before Destiny 2. I think it was right as Destiny 2 was released. This is gouache, right? So technically if I like dump water on this, um, it'll all come off, except for what's staining the paper, you know. Yeah. You can add stuff to acrylics to make them chunkier and dry slower. You can. However, acrylics have they have some limitations. Oils have other limitations, oil paints, but acrylics have some limitations that oils don't. So oil paints or acrylic paints have a they have a max pigment load. Like you can only put so much pigment in acrylics. Yeah, they max out. And so they tend to be a little bit more transparent, just, you know, or translucent. And the slow drying stuff that you can add to it tends to make it even more translucent. There are golden open, which are open acrylics that stay open for like, I think it's somewhere around like the 4 to 4 hours, maybe more, depending on how thick you put them down. That's a little different. They're formulated differently. But yeah, acrylics tend to be a little more transparent or translucent. Yeah, and it's just the way it is. Oil paint technically doesn't have a max pigment load. Technically, it's a little disingenuous to say that because if you want them to function, there is a limitation. But yeah, you can pack it with a lot more pigment. Yeah. I mean, good luck using a brush with some of those paints, man. Some of those paints are so stiff, but you know, it's possible. But yeah, I unless I'm mistaken, I think oil paints have the advantage when it comes to additives, right? Because you have things that you can add to oil paints to make them. You have things that you can add that make them thinner, thicker, dry faster, dry slower. And I know acrylics have all those things, but I think I could be wrong, but I think that the oil versions are less impactful to the paint than they are in acrylics. By the way, we have a Dresden here. Dresden is my cat, one of my cats. He's my ginger boy. And so we're going to get to say hello to him unless he runs away really suddenly. But I like showing him on stream because I love this little boy. And I think he's the cutest cat in the world. Dresden, aw, baby boy. He looks big, but he is not a big cat. He is lanky. And he's so fluffy. But he's only like somewhere between 10 to 12 pounds. Like, I don't remember. So he's not the biggest cat in the world. Yeah, thank you, little boy. Ow, that hurts. Thank you. Yeah. He's a sweetie. He is. He is such a sweetheart. He's a derp derp too. But he's so fun and he's so sweet. Yeah. Thank you, Justin. Okay. I don't know why he likes to lick my beard so much. Okay, little boy. Okay. All right, that's enough. What is it? Okay, he's really into it for some reason. I'm lucky. I'm lucky the beard protects my skin because this would be really rough without it. Yeah. No, it is love. I know. He's also kneading my shoulder a little bit as he does it. Very, very minorly, but he's just like flexing his little paws. Okay, little boy. All right, all right. That's enough. Yeah. Okay, okay. All right. Okay, that's enough. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, his little paws are flexing back and forth, kneading me a little bit too. He's so sweet. And now he sees something he wants to attack. He likes to play. He's very playful. Okay, I don't want you to keep licking me. Here, you can lick your tail. Yeah. All right, I'm going to put you down now. He usually likes to get down on his own, but whatever. Okay, little boy. Oh, he's so sweet. All right, Laura. Excuse me for just a second as I stretch my back real quick. If someone's watching now or later, Part of the reason that I wear gloves when I paint is because I have cats. I want to, like, obviously it's safer to, use gloves because you don't want certain pigments on your skin too much, especially if you have cuts or anything. But if you want the ability to have instantaneously clean hands, gloves are the way to go. So, so yeah, it's generally speaking, the pigments aren't going to do much to you unless you have cuts or open wounds or something. That's my understanding. They just won't absorb, at least if you wipe them off. But yeah, it's so much easier to, clean your hand, to have clean hands instantly with you know, with gloves. Also, if you have pets and something happens and they get paint on them, you can use a vegetable oil, like cooking oil, to clean it off of them, at least to start. Uh, Coconut oil works too. Just oil in general will clean it off them. Make sure it's something that they can, that's okay for them. I think cats and dogs are fine with coconut oil, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but yeah, you can use that to start the process of rubbing it and getting it off of them. Also, Dawn soap, like dish soap. I know they use that for like oil spills. I don't know how true that is, but it will dissolve oil. So yeah, don't let your cats lick it though, you know, the soap or the pigments either. So there's a ton of ways of measuring out paintings. Um, and I'm not going to get into like which are better than others. It just depends. But one thing that I think sometimes people don't pay attention to as much is the rhythms. And rhythms might not be the right phrasing because people talk about rhythms in different ways, but like I noticed that like the shadow here from the ear, I mean, this is the bottom of the ear, which is obviously a different part of the ear, but this part right here, um, like if I were to continue it kind of in this angle, goes up to, you know, the, like the cheek orbital socket part. Now, are they actually connected like directly? No, of course not. But it's a way of measuring and keeping those rhythms kind of going. Laura's back. Okay, back. Needed a drink badly. No problem. Since I got COVID, I swear I have never-ending thirst all the time. Interesting. You drink so much hot tea and water and diluted juice, even sports drinks. That's interesting. I wonder why that is. But yeah. Welcome back. You said your mom works in acrylics and she has an aversion to mixing colors, and she simplified her images quite a bit. That's so weird. I can't, like, the concept of like using paint out of the tube and not mixing it, like with a few exceptions. Of course, there's always instances where you need that, but like 90% of the time that's not the case. So that's why I never understood when people are like, when they like talk about painting and they're like so obsessed with like, oh, what colors do you use to like for the skin tone? And I'm just like, the same colors I use for everything? Like, I mean, it's just kind of all the same. Like, I literally paint everything with the same colors. I don't know what, like, and so the idea of a limited palette, um, like that's how I learned to paint. I learned to paint with a limited palette. So I don't know how to paint. I know how to paint without a limited palette. That's very straightforward. It just doesn't feel natural and it doesn't make sense. Also, one thing I love about painting with a limited palette is how like harmonious it tends to make the paintings, no color seems kind of out of place. With exceptions, of course, but yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Like, I remember freaking, I don't know if you saw this a while ago. Jim Carrey, I don't know, it's a couple of years ago at this point. He's become an artist or does art as well. And he was being interviewed about his paintings or something. And he paints in acrylics. And he showed a table with like all his paints on it. And like I wanted to strangle him because he had so many tubes of paint that it made no sense. Like just nothing about that made any sense. And I was just like, yeah, he's rich. He can afford it, good for him. But like, why? Why would you ever like, oh yeah. It was very annoying. It's the fear of mixing. I don't understand that. I only mix. Like I don't understand. Yeah, I will say that's something I don't understand. People like other artists who have an issue with that. Like I don't understand it. You know, that's just me. Like that's how I learned to paint. That's how I've always painted. I mix everything. Um, that's it. Like there's nothing, that's not special. I know, I don't I don't understand how to paint. I mean, I understand conceptually how to paint without mixing. I just don't understand how to paint without mixing in practical terms. I will say my particular palette um, makes me mix way more than like is probably necessary. Like you could, if I adjusted my palette, I to be more like the colors would be more what's the word I'm looking for? Um oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Like if out of the tube they were closer to what I'm already painting, I would have to do a lot less mixing, right? Because these colors are like, with the exception of like, some cars and some signs and some flowers, right? Like nothing are these colors. So these are all mixing colors. Um, yeah. So if I grabbed a yellow that's like, if I used more muted colors and colors that were closer to like, you know, like there are definitely palettes for portrait painting and for landscape painting and so on that they're closer to the colors that you're already going to need. I would have to mix a lot less. But I don't mind the mixing, and I feel like it's helped me become um a more sensitive to color and transitions and my value, everything. Like I think it's made me a better artist. So I'm happy to keep wasting my time mixing. When I first started oil painting, I did not have the ability to mix the way that I currently do. And so I would pre-mix all my paints. I would be like, okay, I'm working on like, let's say I'd say I'm working on the face. So I'd like mix out my main blocks of color. Excuse me for a second. And allergies. I'm glad I was able to pause to mute before sneezing. That would have been loud. Anyways. Um, yeah. So I was talking about colors and mixing. Oh yeah. Yeah, I did a portrait with the Zorn palette, which was, having not used the Zorn palette before, it was initially very frustrating. But towards the end, I got into it, and I'm very happy with the painting that I produced, and I can see how like you could easily paint like at least the base of most portraits with the Zorn palette. I mean, you could probably paint everything with the Zorn palette if you adjust things, because like if that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do. But I'm saying like I can see it being a very convenient um, you know, palette to use for portraits because of how like close to like skin tones it is already. Um, but Yeah, I did miss my cool colors. Absolutely, that part drove me nuts a little. For anyone who's not familiar with the Zorn palette, it is a limited, very limited palette, popularized by Zorn, but like, or accredited to him. Not that he was the only one who did it. And it's titanium white. Actually, I think originally it wasn't titanium. I think it was lead white. So it's white, black, um, uh, cad red light, roughly, and yellow ochre, and wait, cad red light, yellow ochre. Actually, that's it. It's four colors. That's right. But it's a little misleading because the colors that we use today aren't the exact ones, but it still works. It's just, it is a limited, very, very limited palette. Originally, it wasn't Cad Red because Cad Red didn't exist. It was, I think it was Vermilion, which is way, way more expensive nowadays. And uh, it was also, the yellow ochre was a bit different. Need a blue in there? No, you don't. Not for the Zorn palette, but here's why. Um, what's it called? The ivory black originally was a cool black, right? Today, ivory black isn't as cool as it used to be. So if you mix white, but titanium white is cooler than lead white. So the way you get your cool colors is with the white, basically gray. Gray essentially replaces your blue. It, like I said, it is a very limited palette. It is not my preferred palette. I do prefer to have an actual blue. But yeah, here I can show you the painting I did with it. I don't know if you've seen it. Doesn't matter if maybe someone else hasn't. So this is Andrew Kadima, who is a really good oil painter. He does a lot of stuff on Instagram, probably TikTok too. I just don't follow him on TikTok. He's a really good painter. But yeah, this was done with just those colors. All right, let me put. The thing is, the cools end up looking cool by comparison, right? So that's how you get those cools in there. No, excuse me. Because that's the thing about painting, you know, it's all a thing of comparisons, you know. Excuse me while I cough really loudly to myself. Don't get sick. Now, this isn't sick. This is mostly allergies. Um, The throat thing is not related, but yeah, mostly allergies. I'm not getting sick. At least I don't think so. Fingers crossed. No, I'm getting allergy shots. I'm doing allergy shots to hopefully not have as severe allergies, but my allergies are really severe. Uh, when I was getting my shots, like I went in, um, and they ask you how you're doing, if you had any reaction to the shots and everything. And I said something about having a bit of an interaction or something. This is when I like first started, so the dosage was like very, very mild. Even the nurse there was like, uh yeah, your allergies are really bad. Like I don't remember the exact thing, but she's like, yeah, your allergies are really bad. We'll lower it for you and start slow. No, the two things I am not allergic to are cats and dogs. So, luckily, not allergic to my animals. You ever get something stuck in your throat and, water just isn't enough? Like you need something solid to, that's just what that was. Hopefully the crackers will be enough. But yeah, luckily, not allergic to my cats. Not that I would give up my cats, even if I was. You know what? I take that back. If I'm being honest, honest, I love my cats. Um, I even love my dog who hates me. Maybe hates a little strong. He's scared of me because he's a rescue. I've never done anything to him, but he's still scared. Um, he's got trauma. That's what it is. What it is. I will never give up Dresden. I love this little boy so much. I wouldn't want to get rid of any of my animals, but if I was like very allergic to them, it would be really hard. But there isn't a chance I would give up Dresden. I I don't know, Laura, if you've heard me talk about this. I'm just going to talk about it because you never know who's around, and I just act as if there's a bunch of people listening who haven't heard what I'm talking about before, because you never know who's going to come in and listen after the fact, kind of thing. But I did these painting exercises. The Zorn palette one was also an exercise like that, and that's a very common one. A lot of people do the Zorn palette studies. It's a great I think it's a great way to start off and a good palette for beginners. Um, but I've adjusted my palette over time. Like it wasn't always this one. Like I used to use ultramarine blue and burnt umber or raw umber and all, yellow ochre and I think even cerulean blue and like all these other stuff in it. But slowly I got to this. But I've done these different painting exercises. Like I did this one. Uh, I've done these paintings that are like a single value. So the idea is to try, within limitations of humanity, I guess. So, I tried to be to do it as single value as possible, but there's a little in there, a little variation in there. But yeah, a single value painting takes away the main, like everybody says like value is king, and in a way it is, right? Like if you can do a whole painting and you can mess up all the colors if all your values are right, it's not going to matter. In fact, you've probably seen you all have probably seen those paintings that are like portraits and they're just like all these different swatches of colors that like don't go on, like just like reds, blues, greens, just crazy like swatches and like marks and everything. But the values are all correct, and so it all reads correctly and it works. Um, when you take away value, though, oh my god, it sort of falls apart, but it's also fantastic, and I love it. Yeah, it's interesting. It's really easy to do in the computer, but you know, it's not as fun. It also doesn't look quite right. And if you're painting with traditional mediums, um, there's another aspect. There's a few aspects to it, but one aspect that's missing from digital is um, the the stroke, in which direction your strokes go, and the reflection of the light off of the physical paint. I know some programs can mimic that, but it's not the same. And when you're doing something that's so like so compressed and so very, nuanced, I think it struggles even more with that. But yeah, I think I learned a ton from doing that exercise. And also I've done a bunch of paintings that are like very, very compressed values, very, very compressed, what's it called? Uh, Values and colors and chroma and all that stuff. I think those are all fantastic exercises to do. I learned so much about color mixing doing that. Think it helped my control a lot. Wait, I need to use a bigger brush, but I can't use that brush, so I'll have to use this other brush. One of my brushes just cannot give me it's just too damaged at this point. I need to either restore it or it's going to be relegated to like certain other elements. Trying to like paint the face like this, it's not going to pull it off. Um, let's see. Laura says, yeah, the issue I have with some of the oil brushes is that overcompensate for the brush stroke difference with light and dark depending on the direction of the brush it sweeps. It needs adjusting to make it right in Krita you were talking about. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I probably should have been using this brush up until now. It is better to use, the bigger the brush you can use, basically use as, the idea being to use as big a brush as you can get away with, because that will stop you from getting into the details and unify everything. It's just a good general painting rule and habit. So I probably should have been using this up until now, but I don't like these types of brushes. This is a filbert. I'm not a fan of filberts. I prefer, um, what are they called? Just straights or long straights or whatever they are. Yeah, not a huge fan of filberts, but my other straight is damaged, and I don't feel like breaking out a new brush. I have other brushes. I'm bad at taking care of my brushes, so I need to be better at that. Laura says it's one of the things that makes me hesitant to oil paint. It's more expensive to paint the brushes, the stuff you need, like solvents, etc. Uh, Depends. Are you compared to what? What are you comparing it to? Because I don't think that's true. I can talk about why. I think there's a perception about that, but I don't think that's true. So the reason I don't think that's true is the brushes can be expensive, but you don't need a lot of brushes. And if you take care of them, they'll last a lot longer than they do for me. Um, you already own a bunch of acrylic stuff. That's fair. I mean, it's definitely more expensive to, like, if you already own acrylic stuff, it's definitely going to be more expensive to get into oils than it will be to continue in acrylics. Having said that, um, I don't entirely agree overall. I'll explain. Uh, so the brushes I use, there's a bunch of affordable economic ones you can use that are totally fine. They're identical to the ones you get for acrylics. Um, so as long as you're not buying the cheapest brushes, which if you're really good, you can get away with buying the cheapest brushes if you want, because Nicholas Uribe can paint with the cheapest brushes, but like you are making your life a lot harder. So yeah, they're not that expensive. I don't go for okay, I take that back. I was going to say I don't go buy expensive brushes. I did recently buy expensive brushes, but that was a splurge. I generally don't buy expensive brushes. Um, and then the paints, if you get artist quality paints, which I would recommend, I don't think I'm sure there are exceptions. Generally, I don't think that getting um, student grade, uh, quote unquote, student grade paint is worth it. With exceptions, of course. Like if this is what you're doing, I don't think it's worth it. If you are doing, you know, if you are doing like murals or something different story. But if this is what you're doing, just get artist grade. Um, if you're in America, Winsor Newton, good brand. Gamblin, also a good brand. Their prices are decent. Some other places in Europe have like other brands that are more economical. It's regional. But they're not that expensive. They're not super cheap, but they're not that expensive. Um, titanium white is a pretty affordable color. Um, Mars black, which is the black I use, is not an expensive color. Um, my red and my blue, same thing. The yellow is the most expensive one, but that's just one tube. The palette was $5. That's cheap. Oil um, is pretty cheap. I barely use any solvents. You can, um, yeah. So it's not that much more expensive than acrylics. In fact, I would say long term, it's probably about the same, probably. I haven't I haven't like looked up prices for acrylics, so I could be wrong. But I think it's pretty close. Also, you probably waste a ton more paint with acrylics because it all like, you know, dries on you all the time. Well, you already own a bunch of acrylics. Oh, absolutely. No, I like I said, if you already own it, it is without a doubt cheaper to continue with acrylics than it would be to add oils, than to get like into oils. And I'm 100% agreeing with you there. You are 110% correct on that. All right. I'm gonna leave the face for now, just to give it a little time. Well, I take that back. I saw something I can address, so I'm gonna address it. I'm also gonna be ending stream soon. I like to give a bit of a heads up that when I'm ending stream, because of the delay. I will be streaming. I stream every Sunday day, uh, Monday, and Tuesday evening. That's a schedule. It might change. Actually, it might change soon, but until further notice, that is the schedule. Um, Laura says, I have oil stuff too, though, so I guess I just need to do it and then see which I prefer. I need a simple project to start. Yeah. Give it time. Just mess around with it. I mean, like I said, I feel like there are cheap ways of getting into it. Um, Maybe cheap's not the right word. Economical. It's going to be 1 a.m. soonish. Where where are you located? What part of the world? Don't, you know, general. Because I'm just like, it's like 10:30 here. I'm in Austin, Texas. So, hey, face. Yeah. So it's going to be like 11. I'm just thinking, what place is 2 hours ahead of Austin? Because Eastern is just 1 hour. Is it daylight? Is No, it's not daylight savings times now, right? On the calendar that it's coming up, but I don't think it is. You're in the east of Maine in Canada, so we have an extra hour ahead of Eastern. Ah, okay. All right. I did not realize that there was any part of this, I guess, North America continent that went that far in that direction. Just goes to show how bad my geography is. Brazil shares your time zone too. I did specify North America, but yes, that's interesting. Not that you were saying that. I'm just saying in general. Yeah, because I know the like general shape of the continent. So yeah. But yeah, I'll be ending stream in just a couple minutes. Like I said, I stream on Monday night, Wednesday night, and Sunday day. Um, like I said, if anyone has questions, you're welcome to put them in the comments. You can find me online, all the different places. My name is really easy to find if you get the spelling right. But there are links down below. And yeah. Laura says, and to make it even more fun, Newfoundland is 30 minutes even ahead of my time zone. That's so interesting. You know what I before I end, I'm just going to make this comment that I think I think it's so, for lack of a better word, interesting how like when I was in school, I hated learning certain subjects. And now as an adult, there's definitely a lot of subjects that I hated as a kid in school that I find very interesting, with the exception that I would still hate to like have to study them. If I had to like go to school to learn these things, I would still probably be bored out of my mind, because I do think that there's an element of like not just context, but like how school is set up to teach you, which is like boring as shit. Um, yeah. You think Laura says, I think it's how stuff is presented. I think that's a big part of it. Without, absolutely. I think you're right about that. I don't think it's the only, but I think it's a huge part of it. Like I think history is super interesting, but man, it has to be presented right, because if it's not, it's boring. Oh my God, history is one of those things where it's like it is so interesting and so boring all at the same time. It just depends on how it's presented. Or it says if you can relate to it somehow, like one day you'll talk to someone in Newfoundland. Let's figure out why it's 2 a.m. for them when it's only 11:30 for you. Yeah, absolutely. Half an hour is also such an interesting, like, time difference to have an extra half hour. Like, almost no one has that. Laura says, haha, my bachelor's degree is in history and I loved geography. It's all how it's presented. I mean, plus, I will say this. Plus, everyone has the things that they kind of lean towards. I struggle with like names and dates and memorizing stuff like that. So, history and geography all like don't agree with me. But yeah, before I go, I do want to mention something real quick about the painting because people I think might be um, might notice this and wonder. So, using that big brush going in, like I've kind of destroyed some of the face. And here's the thing, right? This isn't the most time effective way of painting. It'd probably be a lot quicker for me to draw it all out and then kind of like quote unquote color it in, That would be a much faster, efficient way of doing it. And there's nothing wrong with with painting that way. That's just it doesn't give me the look I'm trying to achieve and the feel, which is really what I'm going for, that I'm trying to achieve. So I paint on purpose in a kind of messy way. And I end up destroying a lot of the painting in the process and repainting it. Now, I do want to figure out, and I already have started getting better and more efficient at this because I want to be, faster. But I like the look, and sometimes I keep the mistakes that stay in there. And so one of the things that made a huge difference for me when I started painting was letting go of that fear of like messing up the painting um, and making it right and keeping what was right there all the time. All of that. Once I let all of that go, my paintings improved drastically. So I'm not afraid of messing up anything on the painting. If I have to repaint all of it, I'll have to repaint all of it. Doesn't matter. It's not a big deal. If I painted it once, I can paint it again and I can paint it again and again and again and again. It's never a problem. Uh, it's slow and it's, inefficient and like I may not want to do that, but I'm not afraid of it, is what I'm getting at. The reason I mention this is just so that people know that, like, you know, um, I hope people can like adopt that aspect of things and just like not be so afraid when they're making art. If you if you drew it once, you can draw it again and you can paint again. Now, I'm not going to guarantee you'll always get it perfect because let's be honest, that's not going to happen. But the more the more you do, the less it will matter. Because when I look back at my drawings from years ago, like I'm much better today than I used to be. And, so I'm not really concerned about the painting that I did, you know, uh whatever, even 5 years ago, even a year ago. Like I'm not concerned. If it's not the best one, it's not the best one. I don't care. I've already painted better ones. So that's kind of my attitude on it. Um, so when you see me like end up destroying half the painting in the process, it's not a big deal. I'm not afraid of it, and you know, I just wanted to convey that so people didn't. I don't know. I don't think anyone was like concerned, but it's just kind of my philosophy on painting or how I see it. So, anyways, that's all. So, anyways, I am going to be ending this stream. I would keep streaming, but I have unfortunately I have some other things I have to get to tonight. So, yeah, I'll be ending in just a couple minutes. Hmm, that's a little off. Also, like just painting and then coming back to it later and adjusting, like things when I paint, things shift around a lot. Um, and I have to constantly like redraw everything into place. Like I said, it's not a very efficient way of painting necessarily, but I get the look I want that way. So, Laura says, yeah, it's late here. I'll see you again soon. All right, Laura, have a great night, and I will hopefully see you Sunday. If not, then Monday or whenever you're available. I hope you feel better. You've been sick for a long time. I'm hoping, you feel better. And yeah, that's it. I'm going to be calling it a night. I hope everyone has a fantastic week. Like, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff. You know how it goes. But yeah, if you ring the bell and so on, you'll know when I'm online and when I'm painting. So yeah, questions are always welcome in the comments. I try and get to them. Um, that's all I got. Have a good night, everybody.